everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our podcast, Psychology and Spirituality, a bridge to a better life, a podcast series based on the works by Joanna de Ângelis. My name is Marcia Trajano, and with me today is my dear friend, my colleague of many different projects, Yuri Castro. Hi, Yuri. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Hello, Marcia. Hello, everybody who's watching us online. Hello, everybody who's watching us live, who's watching us later, anywhere you are. Hello, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Ah, it's really a joy to be back, right? But today, Yuri, I propose that we reflect on something that really touches all of us, independent of your gender, your age, or where you're born, where you live currently. But it is this topic, family, right? Family. And when I say family, I probably should further define it because it can be more than the family that you're born into or the family that you're building. It is perhaps within the family that some of our, whatever that family definition may be, but it's there that we find our greatest emotional lessons, and it's this laboratory, if you will. So I like to bring to everyone that in her work, Joanna de Angelis reminds us that family isn't just social structure. She calls it the soul's primary classroom. So, Yodi, I know you've read copious works by Joanna de Angelis, but as you may remember, she writes, family is the foundation upon which society is built, right? Which we all should agree with that. That's the building block for societal design. And family is for all of us that, as I mentioned, the primary school. And what does she mean by that? She means that it is within the family that those, should I call it potentiality, like this latent faculty. Well, we all bring so much with us, but it's there within the family that they are awakened, they are developed. And to me, it's quite a beautiful image if you think of home as a sacred classroom. And what are the lessons? Arithmetic, English, literature? No, it is love, it is patience, forgiveness, and most importantly, understanding. There are many different discussions that I would like to bring to us, perhaps around that. And I just wanted to see, is there any thoughts that you have perhaps about the qualitative attributes of family as a classroom?
Yes, that's such an amazing topic, right, Marcia? Because as you said very well, it is irrespective of gender, of culture, of nationality, of social status, family. We all are in some sort of family in a certain
Yeah,
way. And yeah, Joanna does say it beautifully, right? Like it's the fundamental base. She says about the building of life or society, right? So
yes,
if we imagine, and when I read that, I had this I imagined this building, this skyrise. Let's say society, with many different layers and levels and all that. But the family is the foundation, is the base, is at the
yeah.
core. It's what you have to build from that in order to go up. And I thought that was such a clever and yet interesting way to describe family.
Can I
And
just
go ahead, yeah.
before you go on into your next topic, but this is this image that you had in sharing with us of the foundation, and I just have to say, several years ago, I lived in a different state, right, in Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and I lived downtown, and there was this beautiful stadium for baseball, whatever, whatever. And they imploded it, and I saw the implosion. right? And then they started in the place that was once before an older stadium. They started this, considered today one of the best in class stadium. It's just beautiful, right? In form, in function, etc. But what struck me, it was literally, Yuri, 5 minutes from my home. So I walked, right? I walked almost daily and just get out of home and just walk for walking's sake. And I would see the time that it took for the foundation. I believe it took 1/3 of the entire time of the building and its structure to rise was just the foundation. And
Yeah.
I would go. My father is an engineer and he specializes in that, right? The foundations and geology of places. And I would always think of him. I would walk and I'd look, but it's flat, you don't see anything. It's just all those trucks, all this movement,
Uh-huh.
it's flat, nothing, right? And I was like, this is a crazy. How can they take so long? And once the foundation was built, the magic happened in our eyes, right? All this beautiful, very, it's a round building with, it's very sculptural. And I, when you're talking about the big building and the foundation being the home, it reminded me of that it may take what it looks like a long time for a child, special, like, oh, I was like that. I want to get out. I want to, going to this adventure on my own. I don't need you, mom and dad. And no, it's important. It's really, really critical that we all understand that for human beings, not animals, right? But for human beings, that time together with the lessons of love, the lessons of patience, the lessons of forgiveness. There's so many very important emotional attributes that are really, in this lab of the family, if you will, uh, is taught, it is practiced, and it's stimulated, right? But back to you.
Absolutely not.
Sorry, it was a
And you know,
impromptu
listen,
image, image of an image.
but it is true. I do have a few constructions around the area as well, and they take so long to just prepare the foundation. And once that's prepared, it does
you,
go very
yeah,
quick.
your
Hello?
microphone is
What?
it's
Was it
failing.
muted? Sorry.
Yeah, it's
How about now?
failing. It's still failing.
Hold
Can
on.
you, yeah,
Testing,
sorry everyone.
testing.
Very good. Thank
Is
you.
it better? I apologize
Yeah,
for that, everyone.
it's okay.
I was
It's not,
saying
yeah.
there are a few constructions around in my area as well, and I saw the same thing you're saying. How once they the foundation took a while, but once that was built, it went up pretty quickly, and we can take that into to our lives as well, and to realize that with the knowledge of the family being the first school, so it's the school before even there is any school in the
Yes.
spirit's life. So if
Yes.
when we're learning all those things, even if we're parents, if we're siblings, if we are the sons and daughters, whatever we are, whatever role we are in a certain family, in a certain point in time, we are
Hmm.
always learning something. We're always contributing to something. And just like
Yeah.
you said it so well, Marcia, with the school, you have different classes. It's with the
Yeah.
family being the first school of the soul, or at least the incarnated soul. We're learning a lot of things too. We're learning to work our virtues. You said forgiveness, you said patience, and that is very much true. We're learning tolerance, we're
Yeah.
learning charity, we're learning solidarity, we're all these things that we will eventually take to society, which is, let's call it, the universal family in a way, if we're
Yeah.
thinking through the eyes of the
Yeah.
spirit now. We take that everything we learned in that first school and we expand that to the bigger society. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. It does. If I may, I even, just a thought that came to my mind, right? Because that idea of family. as the school, the school before school, the former school, as we know, right? But the family as the school, as the building, the foundational aspect of how we built and grow in our journey that is quite long. The idea resonates, perhaps. I don't know if you agree or not, but with when we think about Carl Jung's concept of individuation, because in his concept, you see, as I understand it, a process of becoming whole.
Mm-hmm.
And for us to individuate, we have to confront certain inner patterns, right? But
Mm-hmm.
those inner patterns, they are first activated, the potentiality is there, right? They're first activated in the family life. So when we think about it, it's almost like the family, all that laboratory of a family is where we already mentioned is the training, right, ground, but also, interesting enough, it's where all the frictions, all the shadow within each one of us is awakened. So
Mm-hmm.
there will be conflicts, but when we start to pour love is a divine law, and you start to I'm going to use the word magic again, but that you start to see some really interesting transformation of the one family member, the entire family member, and as you already mentioned, the entire world, as we are part of this universal family. But if you go deeper into this, right? Joanna de Angelis in her literature explains a lot about family as, the result, the family unit, a family group, we may call it. The family is the result of the spirits, each one of us, our spirits, our souls, long evolutionary journey. And we
Yes.
can even, the flights of fancy here, right? We can even think in terms of family structure beginning in the animal kingdom, and the image that comes to my mind are of a lion pride, right, with the lion, the lioness, the young I don't know what they call it in the young lions, but anyways, the family members, the children, and
The
but
Cubs.
it the cubs. Thank you. So each one of those, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be a mammal or a feline in this case, but in all the animal kingdom, you see examples of that structure and how they change. And one of the animals, by the way, that I am fascinated is actually whales and how they grow and how they teach, right? Or orangutans is another one that they spend years teaching the young one, with imprinting them on the tools for success. But regardless of that, it really reaches its highest expression with us, with humanity, and it does that through reason and consciousness. So I love if you could perhaps talk a little bit about how we are somehow programmed for connecting, right? And how our, I guess, our instinct as biosocial animals, right? And gregarious animals, how all of that in one setting really transforms into love and incarnation. Through incarnation, we start to see ourselves drawn into family groups to learn very specific emotional lessons. What are your
It
thoughts
is.
on
It
that?
is. Yeah, it is such a blessing if you think about the opportunity of reincarnation, the opportunity to be in a family, to learn all these things.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Joanna says bio, psycho, social, spiritual. She combines it all like in one sentence
Yeah.
as what humans are, and it's very much
Yeah.
true. You know, we are very much like you said,
Can you break
programmed.
it down what you says because it's important?
Bio,
Bio, so
psycho, so the
I
biological, the psychological,
yeah,
social, which
yes,
is already the full word, and spiritual. So
yes.
biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. She says in one word. It's actually interesting. And this there's this idea you mentioned with the animal kingdom that she also talks about, where we
Mm.
do see these groupings, we do see these animals helping each other, the you know, whoever, like the mother, we see the mother instinct there, but the quote
Yeah,
unquote mother instinct, but it's different than
yeah,
the humans, because once the animal, the like the son, the cub, the you know, the little baby animal, reptile, bird, whatever that may be, feline, like you said, once
yeah,
that animal has enough independence, or is able to fend off for himself or herself, then the family unit, in a way, for a lot of animals, is just dissolved right there, because now it's the animal
yeah,
just go and do things by itself, which happens rather quickly. You know, think of
yeah,
equine, you know, and
yeah,
other like donkeys, horses, things like that. That is just they already walk, and they that's it. You know, so it's a little different for humans,
yeah,
which makes us think. You know, that's it's almost
yeah,
like we have this dormant, like you said, this dormant capacity of
yeah,
grouping ourselves in family units, and the mother, you know, the mother's instinct, and all those things that are much more, I like think, augmented, you know, much
yeah.
more complex, but also augmented
Mm,
versus what we see in other animals, in the animal kingdom, where we
mm.
don't. Once somebody is, you know, I have two sons, they're going to be my sons in this life for the rest of my life. Doesn't matter if we never talk again, or if we talk every day, if we, doesn't matter, they are my sons. And it's with animals is different. There is this thing that it's almost like they move on rather quickly,
Yes.
emotionally speaking, whereas humans, we don't, and we must think to ourselves, why is that? Would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah, I agree. And it's funny when you said that my sons, your two sons, right? They're your sons forever. So I immediately, it's so funny how our imagination goes. I immediately saw you, Yuri, when you're 85 years old, and your children would be what, in their 60s or 50s, and they're gonna be adults, fully older than you are now, and you're gonna
Yeah,
still treat them as you treat them
I
today.
bet.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. And I on a different note, I remember I became a mother when I was quite young. I don't know that I was quite prepared emotionally to be, but I did. I was married within the first year of our relationship. Here I am, pregnant, and but I had so many ideas. What would Marcia be, right? I wanted to be this, I wanted to be that. But the minute, Yuri, the minute, that's the maternal instinct that you reference, right? The minute that I found that I was pregnant, it's something clicked in me
Hmm.
that it doesn't matter for the rest of my life, like you said, I'll be the mother of this young
Hmm.
child. And I learned later from a friend, this school friend that 20 years later reached out to me and he said, Marcia, you sold out. You let go of all your dreams. What
uh,
happened? And I don't know that I ever feel to date that it was a sacrifice. It was a choice based on love, a choice
yeah.
based on that deep sense of responsibility for this child. But one thing that I wanted to say to you, if you love to hear your opinion on this, but somehow I don't know why we often imagine families should be perfect. As in, you fall
Oh,
in love, right? You fall in love, and the traditional way is you get married, you have children, and there is this beautifully harmonious, supportive, perfect family unit. And and the reality that it's not. So let's think about from your parents to you to your children to your grandchildren. What is perhaps the most important linkage between all of them, which is how to learn and how to teach, transmit to the next generation, how to include, be ready for that laboratory. And Joanna reminds me, right? You and I are both spiritists. You and I both believe in reincarnation. And we both believe that this is not the first or second or even the last time we're going to have a corporeal existence. And we
Yeah.
have a life that is quite interesting each time. But she reminds us that coming back to a new corporeal existence, a new life, if you will, we should, more often than not incarnate in the so-called ideal family, right?
Mm.
Right? So think about it. So she says we join the family grouping that will be most effective in helping us awaken those dormant virtues, that all the potentiality. So immediately when I think of it, and I say, Joanna, you are so right. You are so right, because it would be a wasted. Think about it. If you come an immortal soul, and if you have, I'm going to pretend here that's not true, I'm just for pedagogical reasons, right? We have 10 incarnations, and boy, you need to learn X in incarnation 9, right? Would you waste that ninth one, almost the last one, and put you in a family that will give everything that you want and will not challenge you, push you, expand and stretch you into learning what you need to learn, which is X? So it's very interesting because all that in often families we have that what they call the black sheep of the family. In the family, we have somebody who's the most outspoken. We have somebody that is spoiled to death, somebody who's lazy, somebody who's entitled, somebody who's the super performer, and everybody's jealous. So we have all those different types of attributes from a personality perspective. But let's think about that's exactly what you need. Those interactions are what we
Yeah.
need. Yeah.
It is very interesting because she does say that we don't a person doesn't live in an ideal
Yeah.
family, and
Yeah.
but she explains the notion of ideal, which is interesting because
Tell
like
us what it is. Yeah.
she explains that one doesn't live in because everybody would like to live in groups of spirits that everybody's wise and everybody's super
Yes.
evolved. If I could live with angelical
Yes.
spirits as my sibling, my mother, my dad, and my wife, now my sons, and I'm the only one that's not angelical, that would be so. I would be wow. I'll be so. It'd be so much easier to learn because I would learn from them. They would teach, But in reality, that's not the ideal. The ideal in a way, what's right is what we reincarnate in, because nobody's here for like without a higher purpose. We have the people around us because we need those people around us. And
Yeah.
it's not, it would be so yeah, we think foolishly, I think, in some ways, that, oh, if I was surrounded only by angelical beings, it would be much easier. Jesus didn't surround himself by angelical
That's
beings when he
right.
chose the apostles. What
Yeah.
is
That's
that if
right.
not a lesson of you surround yourself by people that have the potential, that are still imperfect as well, that are still not
Yeah.
pure spirits, and then you learn from them, you teach them, you do all those things that you
Uh-huh.
need to do. And our
Yeah.
family, as we're talking, and I think is another author, André Luiz, who says is the microcosm of redemption and things like
Yeah.
that. So alluding to this notion that we have the people around us that we need to have, and nobody has, there's no you mentioned in the beginning, there's no perfect family. The word
Yeah.
perfect, there's only God is perfect, number one. So there's
Yeah.
no perfect family, but
Yeah.
we, of course, we would like to think, oh, if my mom wasn't this way, or if my dad hadn't been that way, if if we'd like to think all of that. And how can we have a perfect family if we imagine that it's a combination of ingredients? I think of
Yeah.
like doing a fruit salad, right, Marcia? If you get a grape that's a bit, overripe, and you get a I don't know, a banana that's a bit rotten, and you combine all of that, how are you gonna have a
Yeah.
perfect
Yeah.
tasting fruit salad? You won't. So it's
Although I have to tell you because I recently went to Bordeaux in France,
uh,
Bordeaux in Portuguese, Bordeaux in French, but it's in English is Bordeaux as well, right? And there is a structure museum that talks about how wines are made across the world. And I found out that in France, they actually there's this very interesting, I never knew this, chemistry of overripe, right? And they actually allow certain grapes to have a certain, not all, of ripeness, or even with viruses or whatever. They let that, because it's in the mix that we have the best of the best wine. And I was absolutely oblivious of that. And it's exactly what you were talking about, the fruit salad, right? We don't want all overripe banana and this.
if we have
Yeah.
an apple that has like a little worm in it, and a banana that's
Oh,
rotten, like
no,
how do you
no,
expect? No, no, but how do you expect the fruit salad to be perfect? So imagine
yeah,
now, the fruits
yeah,
are spirits, right? We are
yeah,
still impure, we're still imperfect. So when we
yeah,
combine all of those imperfect beings, you're not going to
yeah,
have a perfect unity. You're not going to have a
yeah,
perfect family. You're going to have, one that tastes a little off here and
yeah,
there, but it's how it is. And we are, that's okay, because we
yeah,
are
yeah,
where we need to be, with the
yeah,
people we need to be. Because you also touched on a pivotal concept, I think, whenever we're talking about family.
yeah,
This idea that the spirit, well, number one, is immortal. Number two, is gonna
yeah,
go and has already gone through multiple reincarnations. So
yeah,
adopting a body of like meat and flesh and bones and all of those things.
yeah,
And we have had histories, previous histories with people.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes these people, they have to come in our family members because we are their enemies. They're our enemies, whatever that may be. We have debts that we have to sort of like see to.
yeah,
And the family is the best place because that's where you have the love, you have the patience, you are bound to one another, and you have to exercise those things, the love, the forgiveness, that
yeah,
sometimes is very, very hard. And if we don't look at it with the eyes of the spirit, I think it becomes even harder to exercise forgiveness, to exercise love and tolerance, when when you don't think to yourself, wow, maybe I have to learn to forgive, and I have to learn to love this person that is so opposite to me, that is so different than me.
yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think?
I absolutely like it. And what comes to my mind is, the lesson of forgiveness. You don't forgive 7 times. You forgive 70 times seven. And I would say four. How old is your youngest?
Two.
Oh, there you go. The terrible twos, right? When the child learns from a development perspective that the child is no longer part of the mother, but it's a
Yeah.
me, right? It's two individuals, and in that instance, again, that it's beautiful, it's miraculous, even that. Oh, now I know who I am. It starts to have a voice and test the voice, right? It is no, no, and it is that point that you say, Yuri, for you and your wife, it's not 70 times 7 times 70. It's 7 times 70 each question
Yes.
that the child,
Yes.
because they keep stretching, right? They keep pushing. But, and I said, no, no, no. So it's a very interesting, which one of the after the results, the aftermath of this time period of being 2-year old, depends on each person, but around that 24 months, we see independence, but we also see the love in the discipline, right? Because
Hmm.
if you can imagine a parent, two parents, that if the child asks something that is absolutely not appropriate, and the parent says yes, right? Because I don't want to be bothered with that discussion, the child may get into serious trouble, including safety issues. But
Yeah.
I think it's really, if you think about not just the terrible twos with the constant whys and asks for the same thing hundreds of times each day, we see that there will be conflicts, and we can only imagine when those children will become teenagers, right? As in youth, when that sense of independence of the terrible twos become exacerbated to
Yeah.
infinity sometimes, and you have to show love and discipline at the same time. But that's when I see, that's in this type of laboratory that our needs, each one of us, are addressed. And to be addressed, bringing back what Joanna said, right, with the incarnation, there will be conflict, there will be misunderstandings. And that's the part of the job that we signed up. I just wonder if we could right, to understand this easier. It's not for anybody. If you are a spiritualist, spiritist, if you are a psychologist, it does not matter. It's equally hard, don't you think?
It is. It is equally hard because at the bottom we're all human. Doesn't matter the
Yeah,
label,
yeah,
the religious label, the professional
yeah,
role we have in our lives, this life. No, we're all human in the bottom, at the core, and we're surrounded by people that we must be surrounded by. Because
yeah.
as I was saying before, if we were just surrounded by pure and angelical creatures, how could I exercise patience, forgiveness? Because they wouldn't make mistakes towards me. How can I learn to
Absolutely.
forgive if
Yeah,
somebody, if if I was surrounded by a little bunch of Jesuses? I would
yeah,
not learn. I wouldn't need to forgive. I wouldn't need to be patient. I would not need to be tolerant. So
yeah,
how would I be able to exercise those
yeah,
virtues? And the answer is I wouldn't.
yeah,
Therefore, we are very, because of the grace and the love of our God, we are surrounded by the
yeah,
people we need to be surrounded by, so we can learn all these things, so we can do different than
yeah,
perhaps what we have done previously. And that is,
yeah,
I think that's such a hopeful sort of
yeah,
thought
yeah,
to have and to hold and to utilize in our lives, because that's what Spiritism also helps us so much with, giving this different perspective, so we can carry on and learn these virtues and at least try to practice
yeah.
these virtues and forgive and all of that much more easily, I think.
Yeah, I know you have, you're a clinical psychologist and you have a lot of experience. Without betraying your patients, is there anything that comes to your mind in terms of those deep embedded conflicts
Oh yeah.
and friction that
So
perhaps you could bring into the perspective of the family as school?
it, look, I see teenagers. I see some older children and teenagers and adults mainly. And then when the
Okay.
teenagers come, they come usually with the parents, because the parents come and like, oh, I'm bringing my son or my daughter, whatever, to
Yeah.
therapy, and we start to go over what's going on, and what we can work on. And I have countless times I have caught myself seeing the interaction of, let's say, I have a lot of patients who are boys because I'm a male
Yeah.
therapist,
Yeah.
and they usually prefer to talk to guys.
Yeah.
So I've seen countless of times, and I caught myself thinking this countless of times, observing the interaction of, let's say, a mom and a son, or a son and a dad,
Yeah.
and the parent is telling me, I give him everything, or there's so much, I only give love, I only give this and that, and he still doesn't like me, he still disobeys me, he only listens to the other parent, or he
Yeah.
only hugs the other
Yeah.
parent, and you can see that there is like there is some resentment, there's always feelings, there are like negative feelings toward that parent in this specific case, but I've
Mhm.
I've seen it multiple times. and you can only look and think there has to be something beyond this 12 years, 13 years, 14 years that this person has been in this other person's life to
Yeah.
generate that much, hatred, that
Animosity.
much
Yeah.
resentment,
Yeah. Yeah.
animosity. Exactly.
Yeah.
If you look at that only with the material eyes and the eyes of this specific reincarnation, you would not find an answer as to why that child hates that parent so much. And
Yeah.
I catch myself thinking, wow, there's only one explanation, and
Yeah.
it's the immortality of the soul and what everything we already talked about as far as the spirits having these debts, having these things that they must come and they must learn with one another.
Yeah, and I'm not asking you to, solve anybody's problem, but if I came to you and now I'm the young 18-year-old or 16-year-old, deeply conflicted, right? I'm deeply conflicted, and my parents brought me to talk to you, Yuri. What is something that you would tell me that would perhaps help me understand what's going on, what's all this, why can I, as a young person, can talk to friends, I can talk to schoolmates, I can talk to parents of other friends, but and you already said it, but how can you alleviate the burden of guilt of an individual?
Yeah.
Perhaps, I don't know if you addressed that, but I
So
think it would be lovely.
no, I do address if you're 18, you not parents will not come with you. But if you're, let's say, younger, the parents would
Yeah.
have to come with you by law.
Yeah.
So the idea is because they're still responsible for you. So the idea in this situation, there's always these situations where there's these, especially older teenagers, let's say 15, 16, 17,
Yeah.
high schoolers here in the United States, where they do want the relationship to improve with their parent, like with the
Yeah,
specific
that's good
parent
to
and all that.
hear.
So
Yeah.
when they have that motivation, which by the way they all do, some of them is just like hidden, or
Yeah.
there's so much resentment that it's kind of like on top of that motivation that I wanna like my dad, I wanna hug my mom, I wanna have love and give love to them. But the thing is trying to find that motivation, and oftentimes it's easier, sometimes it's hard, but once you find that and you work with that core of the motivation to help them with their behaviors and all those things that they need to see that parent in a different eye. And I'm
Yeah.
saying this, and I'll make a parenthesis here. It all depends on the psychological, we're not going to get too much to that, but in the psychological line of treatment that each person adopts. I have a
Hmm.
specific one. Other people might have a different approach to this, but the main thing is they all want to live a life they have no stress. So if they have a stress with a family
Yeah.
member, well, would you like to have a
Yeah.
less stressed relationship?
Yeah.
The answer is always yes, invariably.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
let's work towards that.
Yeah. That's very interesting, right? We all in pain, and our way, because we are in Western society, we all are root cause, right? Or cause and effect. It's painful.
Yeah.
Let me take away the pain, but not always looking for the root cause, especially if you don't have a disposition to really seek. Well, if it's not here, if there are no apparent causes for what's going on today in my childhood, it must be elsewhere. So in anyways, I just really like what you're saying, that no matter what, the majority of young families with young teens that are troubled and causing all sorts of stress, there is, hidden or not, a desire to love, to go back to that sense of peace, the sense of belonging, right?
And let me
Yeah,
just
yeah,
add the fact that
yeah,
since we're on this,
yeah,
children and teenagers, a lot of the times it's
yeah,
much quote unquote easier to work with them and to help them than the parents, because the parents oftentimes don't think they have any agency.
yeah,
Really, they don't think they they just want to drop their children like they're dropping their car off for an oil change, and they
Yeah,
pick it up and it's already quote unquote solved and fixed, quote unquote
yeah,
fixed,
yeah.
and they don't realize the importance and the role they have. So a lot of the work for child psychologists, and those who are listening to me will agree, is with the parents, that you have
Yeah,
to help
interesting.
the parents help themselves and help the child. So,
Yeah, yeah,
and that's a yeah.
yeah, and it's interesting because if you think about it, and I'm going to deviate the topic from the family as the parents and children to a couple, right?
Yeah.
I mentioned before, you fall in love, you get married, and fairy tales. You want the ideal relationship, the ideal marriage, the happy ever after. And statistics tell us, nope. I think we are approaching 75% of all relationships, marriages specifically, end in divorce. But what is so interesting, I'm quoting someone who was going through divorce, Yuri, maybe 30 years ago, so long time ago. This woman was, and I never forgot because she could not believe that the battlefield, if you will, the battlefield of a divorce, her spouse, her separated spouse, would come back with all the worst parts of her, and he was, we could say, the worst enemy because he knew all her flaws. And I said, yeah, you slept with the enemy for a long time and you shared all your vulnerability. But that's what family is, isn't it? It's this place where we should
Yeah.
not have masks. We should be ourselves. We should unveil all of our imperfections, because family as this school, right, the first school of the soul, the family is there to actually polish, to educate, even though there will be points of friction between the family members. But how can we educate if we don't know what needs to be educated? So I'm doing an invitation. This is Marcia speaking, nobody else, but I'm inviting all of us to be who we are authentically, so with all of our flaws in the family. Let's not be shy, because that's the place that we should learn and love and really, um, I was going to use the word alchemy. I don't know that you like that word so much, but that's the
Yeah.
magic, right? Where we deal with our shadows, we deal with all of our imperfections, and how I just rub it the wrong way, but together with this commitment to love, to care, to protect, we should then learn to be better. What are your thoughts, Yuri?
No, absolutely. Again, the family, as we're talking about the first school of the soul, and in school, like
Yeah,
you said, bringing back to the beginning a little bit,
yeah,
you learn all these things, and of course, if when you mentioned the mask piece,
yeah,
there is, if you said you slept with the enemy for so many
yeah,
years, in the family, it's so much harder, close to impossible, even depending, to keep those masks, because we're seeing them every time. We're seeing them so many. It's much easier to do that with somebody you only see once a month, or for a
yeah.
couple of hours every day at your work and things like that. But with
At
the
our
family,
best, at our best, right? We are at
yeah.
our best.
We try to
Yeah.
always be at our best, of course, but in the household, in the family, under those four walls, like I mean, sorry, under the same roof, that's
Yeah.
when we sometimes come undone. That's when we take that mask off, and that's why people, they tend to know us better than most, because of that, and vice versa. But I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of beauty in that, because
Yes.
it's like they're seeing the true you, like with all your defects, with all your
Yeah.
skills already, with all your virtues, or if you know all those things. I think that is, it's such a beautiful thing, at least in my like idea, to see somebody as a whole, and like with
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
it's like you're
Yeah.
getting the full the full version of the person. And I think in the family we get to do that. Oftentimes we don't like it because we feel vulnerable, but that's
Yeah,
perhaps
yeah.
another episode of this podcast. But the idea but the idea is that we have the family as the first school, because we're learning all these things that we need to learn, because the soul, the immortal soul, is progressing. In order to
Yeah.
progress, same way in the school, you need to construct and build the knowledge piece by piece, little by little. It's a process, like Joanna says, it's a process. And the idea of process is that it's this gradual, methodical, systematical approach to things,
Yeah.
where we're learning, we're evolving, and family allows us to do that. We are meant to live in society. We're not meant to live as hermits, all of us, all billions and billions of people. So
Yeah.
it's, I think those are some things that we can think about and reflect and see how we can, apply in our daily lives.
I love it. I believe we can close it because it's such beautiful thoughts from you, Yuri. And just to wrap up, we saw today that family cannot be seen as just a social contract, right? It is
Yeah.
a classroom of the soul. It's a divine classroom of the soul, if you will. It's a place where all souls will desire to meet again. And when they're back together, they're there to heal, to grow, to learn the, I would say, the sacred art of love. But I would also venture to say that both spiritism and psychology, as you talked about your practice, we all believe that relationships are the mirrors of our inner world, be the parent, being the child, be right, whatever it is that the situation of conflict, we are really mirroring what's behind it all. And to me, Yuri, the more we are able to heal within, the more we are able to bring a sense of peace and harmony to our families. So perhaps for all of us tonight, before we go to sleep, we can take a moment to just be grateful and bless this family unit that we're in. And it may be that you don't live with them, your larger family, right? That you're
Yeah.
alone. But let's just take a moment to be grateful and to bless them with all, especially for all their imperfections, but also with all their beauty, recognizing that this is the school that our souls needed, and was the school that it was customized just for us. So anyways, let us rewrite, right, Yuri, for all
Yeah.
of us that are living in conflict, and most of us are, let us attempt to rewrite this story with love and in harmony. And I just want to say, Yuri, thank you so much for being here with me today, with us, and for all of you who are here listening to this podcast. Thank you for your being here, for listening, and for those of you who perhaps are tuning in for the first time, the Psychology and Spirituality weekly talks, they're are based on the works by Joanna de Ângelis. We peppered our conversation with reference to some of her insightful teachings, right, Yoni? And
Mm-hmm.
we hope that you can take a little bit of nuggets from the juxtaposition of spirituality and psychology. I also want to thank our sponsoring organizations, Mansão do Caminho, United States Spiritist Federation, the International Spiritist Council, and AME Brazil. That is the organization that is the Brazilian arm of an international medical spiritist association. I want to say thank you, everyone, for being here. And Yuri, until next time, thank you so much.
Thank you.